Okay, I'm a major skeptic on crypto tokens, which you call currency, like Bitcoin. They are decentralized Ponzi schemes, and the notion that's good for anybody is unbelievable.
Well, good afternoon. I'm excited to be here with each of you. Before I get started on my questions, Mr. Moynihan, I wanted to let you know, Saruthi, raise your hand, Saruthi. She has been my team member for a couple of years now, but on Monday she becomes a Bank of America team member, about which she is very, very excited. So I hope you'll take good care of her and know and recognize the talent that she has shown already in our office. I'm sure she'll do the same at Bank of America.
We will do that, and her father already works for us, so he'll take care of it.
You should have called us.
Today we'll continue a tradition we started last year and hear from CEOs of the nation's 7 biggest retail banks. After years of consolidation and concentration through banking crises and rubber stamp mergers, your banks dominate the banking industry. Together you have over $13 trillion, $13,000 billion in assets. That's half the nation's GDP.
And wage growth, which means that the average person's spending power is going down, not up. The last 6 months, we've seen inflation over 8%. Fast forwarding another 6 to 12 months, where are we and why?
You know, the economy is facing some very tough things, okay? We have a strong U.S. consumer. They're spending money, still 10% over last year, 35% over prior year. Their checking accounts are in better shape. Their balance sheet's in better shape. Their debt service ratio is actually almost historical lows. Obviously, it's being eroded by inflation, but and that's kind of current. Yep. The future, not that far away, you have QT, rising rates, more inflation, war in Ukraine, which is deteriorating, oil prices, which I still think are kind of precarious. And yeah, those things have the potential to put the country and the world into a recession, which will obviously help inflation, but is not the preferred way to get there. So the worst outcome is stagflation. So conquering inflation is a very important thing to do.
Welcome to Key Stock and Crypto Channel.
And we have the big bank CEOs back in front of Congress. And the big banks are the biggest what? I'm going to let you finish that. And these big banks get billions and billions of dollars from overdraft fees. Even during the C word, they were collecting them. During the housing crisis and the banking collapse, a lot of these banks were consolidated. A lot of these credit unions are in like a credit union network, and a lot of people don't even know that. So these big banks own a lot of these credit unions. When we look at these big banks and big corporations, it's all monopolies. And while the Fed is raising rates and shrinking this balance sheet, they're going to get the rest of these small banks. And they're going to allow these small businesses to fall by the wayside, because there's no way you can fund your business with no capital. So these big banks and big corporations are going to pick the winners and losers. These big banks are well positioned for the downturn as you listen. And then plus, guys, this new digital economy is going to rise as the legacy market falls. We know about JP Morgan coin, and like he stated, they're moving trillions and trillions of dollars digital already. Federal Reserve 2.0 on blockchain is on its way. But guys, all I have for you, have a wonderful day.
Very important thing to do.
So when I look at the credit card balances, they're going up, not down. The challenges for small businesses finding employees, worse, not better. The truth is that in many ways, our economy is looking at some really strong headwinds. We would hope that the worst is in the rearview mirror, but truly, perhaps it's in the windshield. And I just wonder, as we think about the stress tests and trying to break this down for the average person at home, listening to a banking hearing, I'm not sure why they would be listening, but just in case they are, question I ask myself is, as we have these conversations about capital requirements going up, which means that loans will go down and inflation still is heading in the wrong direction, finding employees is harder than it was. Having been a small business owner, that formula looks like a first-time business owner, minority business owners, are going to have a harder time getting the credit they need to grow and strengthen the economy in their neighborhoods. Am I wrong when you add all that together?
I think there are capital requirements which are causing us to reduce lending right now to build up capital because of a recent stress test, which I thought was completely unnecessary.
But the stress test actually prove that we are in a healthier position than you all are in a healthier position you've ever been in. Therefore, increasing the capital requirements that reduces loans might have a unintended perverse consequence for small business owners trying to figure out how to bring more opportunities to their communities. Is that accurate, Ms. Frazier?
Seemed abnormal to me, yeah.
Yes, that seems a possible outcome.
Anyone disagree with that? So, to me, it seems like then the solution is if our stress test and the challenges that we're putting our banks through in order to make sure that they are healthy enough to endure a pandemic or 2008 should suggest if we want more lending for more business startups, then we would be heading, according to Vice Chairman Barr's comments, we would be heading in the wrong direction. Thoughts? I love when you guys are silent. It says so much.
Senator, if I may, there's two things that have changed over the last few years. One is the CECL accounting standard, which causes banks to have to reserve for the life of the loan potential losses. As we go into a slower economic period, which I believe we're going to go into, it's going to cause banks to reserve and pull money off the table at the same time as we're raising capital requirements, which is also going to pull money off the table. So effectively, we're pro-cyclical in the potential downturn that we're going to face here from those two effects.
People as you do, Mr. Dimon, I don't think that their choices is to end up in overdrafts. Your banks made $64 billion collectively last quarter. $64 billion. So it's clear to me that there's no reasonable explanation to continue to charge overdraft fees on working families. You just have.
I don't like to brag about the expensive places I've been, but night before last, I went to the grocery store. Inflation is gutting the American people like a fish. Now, we know what our Federal Reserve is doing on the monetary side.
You know, America is the leader in world financial services. But that said, it's a privilege. And there are other countries that are working at a transformative pace in innovation. So having China come up at the conclusion of Mr. Tester's conversations with you, I want to start with that issue. Mr. Dimon, I want to ask you about a comment you made last month. You said China looks at America and they say, you have been incompetent and lazy. And then you said, there's some truth to that. So I too am concerned that too many in the financial services industry have been lazy and they don't see the transformative pace at which the rest of the world is innovating. Payments technology, for example, is far too slow and costly. So your bank is currently testing JPM coin. It's a type of stable coin for faster settlement. Could you talk a little bit about our duty to responsibly innovate, to stay a world leader? Same question to Mr. Cesare.
Yeah, I mean, America already is the world innovator and world leader, and China is a serious competitive strategic issue we all have to deal with. And so I totally agree with that. I don't think Americans should be embarrassed. I mean, we still have the most prosperous nation on the planet, all of the food, water, and energy we need, free enterprise, the gifts of God, the gifts of our founding fathers. They have autocracy, not enough food, water, and energy. They need 15 million barrels of oil a day. They get 4 from themselves or their immediate neighbors, stuff like that. We're in very good shape. The lazy part, talking about his policy, is things we got wrong, what we could have done better. Immigration, taxation, regulation, healthcare, litigation, all these things. I think it slowed down America. And I think we should be focusing more, how can we grow more and create more wealthier, afford more military, et cetera, et cetera. And innovation in cryptocurrency, they're probably ahead in a couple of areas. And I think we should recognize that and combat that. And I'm not really worried about it as long as we get our act together.
Mr. Cesare?
I agree. I think one particular area of innovation that's critically important is money movement and payments activity. And I think the banks are working together with each other as well as our regulators on activities like real-time payments, Zelle, even Fed now. All those things I think will position us well for future payments activity.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this?
I think our colleague spoke to it, but the real-time payment system, the ability to get a 24/7 wire system at the Fed would be critical to it, and their new real-time system ought to provide that. But one of the disadvantages in payment system technology is the ability to pay on the weekends and move a substantial amount of money that actually clears. T+0 security settlement would be doable if you actually could have the money move during the night. And so I think we're all aware of that. We've connected our real-time payment system. We're connecting it to other parts of the world that we've put together through the clearinghouse. That'll enable money to move real time. You connect that with Zelle and things, you can move it with no cost to another banking client, as long as someone doesn't step in and say, oh, that is not sufficient to have Santander in Spain. You do the KYC so we can rely on it. We need some enabling things. And I think, if we do that right, we can take, you will see the innovation this is already set up and already moving. And by the way, we move trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars a day very efficiently. So I think people's view of what's inefficient is kind of interesting, but you have to look at what really moves.
Well, money was transferred in cryptocurrency as donations to Ukraine. They were spending it the next day. And if it had been transferred in US dollars, it would have taken about 10 days for it to reach. I see some of you shaking your heads. Disagree, Mr. Dimon?
Right now, we're moving $10 trillion around the world. Zipping and zapping through AML systems, OFAC systems, regulations, AI systems, cyber systems, safely, immediately. A lot of it's real time. You're talking about retail payments.
Yes, I am.
Yes, and I agree with that. That's a thing that we all can work on.
Wells Fargo, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Truist, US Bank, and PNC jointly created and own the nation's most popular peer-to-peer payment platform, Zelle. The banks market Zelle as, quote, fast, safe, and an easy way to spend money, end quote. That is only partly true. It is definitely fast. Zelle is fast. Zelle is easy. And they increase bank profit margins, but Zelle is not safe. Last year alone, Zelle users were defrauded out of about $500 million that we know of. Now, you built the system, you profit from every transaction on the system, and you tell people that it is safe. But when someone is defrauded, you claim that's the customer's problem. We do oversight on the banking committee, so I want to know exactly how big this problem is. In July, other senators and I wrote to ask you how many fraudulent Zelle transactions your customers have reported since 2018. Only Mr. Rogers of Truist provided the data. 52,000 claims of fraud, totaling $46 million. Thank you, Mr. Rogers, for being transparent. But the rest of you stonewalled. So today I get to ask you in person. Do I have any volunteers who want to go first and share the numbers that I asked for in July? Or will I just pick volunteers? Okay, Mr. Dimon, you represent the largest bank here today, so let me start with you. You didn't provide any of the information that we requested in our letter, none of it. So what I want to know is that because you don't keep track when your customers report fraudulent Zelle transactions, or is it because you do keep track and you know exactly how many fraudulent transactions have been reported and you want to keep that report a secret?
I deeply apologize that we didn't give you the numbers you asked for. I'm sure we responded, and we pay anything that's unauthorized, we do cover. So you're really talking about authorized transactions that we have an enormous amount of systems to stop, and the amount of fraud relatively is very small for this free of charge service.
I very much appreciate that you're going to give the commercial for Zelle, but if I don't have the numbers, I don't have any way to verify that.
You're going to get them immediately, okay?
You want to give me a ballpark right now?
I don't have the number in front of me.